Welcome back to another episode of the Inkwell Gamers podcast. Today, we're pretty much going to be wrapping up talking about Ursula's return because we are gearing up to welcome in Shimmering Skies. So, to conclude this set, we are going to be recapping the last week of set champs and how both those tournaments went for us. And then at the end, we will also cover, similarly to what we did last week, with the Steel Sapphire starter deck, we're going to cover the Amber Amethyst Madrigal starter deck and just kind of give our thoughts about that and maybe how we might take this kind of archetype and just upgrade it to make it a little bit more competitive than what it is. So, without further ado, are you ready to jump into it, Dalton?
Let's get going.
All right, so this past weekend was our last group of set champ tournaments. Walk us through how your Saturday went.
My Saturday went pretty well.
Some might say.
So I registered Ruby Sapphire as just a deck that I like to play, but it's also really strong. I know I was debating between that and Steel Song last week, but I just hadn't played really very much with Steel Song, and I really wanted to at least win one Ursula.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go back to the tried and true. And I played a very similar list to one of the top 16 decks from Fort Worth. And it was really good. During the course of, well, I'll give a little bit of a spoiler alert. During the course of Saturday and Sunday, I think I lost 4 games total. So, yeah, I ended up getting first Saturday.
Woohoo!
Yeah, got the mat and everything. It was awesome. My deck felt really good. I didn't play against Ruby Amethyst, which is like the deck's probably worst matchup. But I did play against a lot of Amethyst decks in general this weekend, which I think are probably supposed to be good. But they're all like Steel Amethyst. A little bit more board controlling focus because of, you really want to have Answers Diablo for that deck, so they just have like a lot of removal spells that aren't good against the deck I was playing. And yeah, it just felt really good to play Flowersham and Fishbone Quill and Tamatoa again. Those cards are so strong.
You missed them.
I did. And yeah, I think I lost 2 games Saturday. So yeah, it was awesome.
I'm so proud of you. Now, how was that deck maybe a little bit different than the one that you had previously took to the DLC in Chicago?
Oh, it felt miles better than that deck. The deck that I took to DLC in Chicago, I was playing Ice Blocks, which are just another Uninkable, but like I wanted my Uninkables to be more impactful than what Ice Block is. I don't think that card's very good. It doesn't really help you out in any specific matchup. So I was playing no Ice Blocks. I was playing 4 Pegasus, the 2-drop 3/1 evasive. It's really good against opposing Flynn Riders. It is also just another character that can trade with Bucky. Or not Bucky, Diablo.
Yeah.
So that edition felt really good.
I feel like it also is good to answer in the Steel Amethyst decks that we were seeing. They were teching for Diablo as well, so they have the evasive brooms, and theirs survives to Diablo, but yours gets rid of it.
Yeah. It's not something in that matchup I really want to play out on turn 2 very often, just because it's so often going to end up getting banished to a Tink or let the Storm Rage on, just one of those removal spells, and I'd rather just use it as ink. But it is something that in a pinch can also pressure a Queen's Castle, and a lot of the Steel Amethyst decks that we were playing were also playing Yin Sid, which can quest for a ton if left unchecked. So it also trades with Yin Sid. So that card did a lot of work. It was one of the better innovations for Ruby Sapphire that I've seen. The other big change was I played 2 Hercules, the 7/3 Rush. that's uninkable, and I can't count how many times my opponent played a Queen's Castle on turn 4, and then on turn 5 I just play Hercules, banish it, and then they have to trade into the Hercules with something else. That card was really good at doing one specific thing, which is what is in the deck to do, is just banish those Queen's Castles.
Yeah.
So that was awesome.
Yeah, because that is something that we continually talk about, is how difficult the Queen's Castle is for a lot of decks to get rid of. I know when I played Emerald Steel, if someone put that down, I started panicking. And then especially when they put the second one down, then I was pretty much thinking, like, let's just scoop and move on, you know? But having that answer is really smart to have put that in there. And I'm sure it also takes care of, obviously, a lot of other things. But it's nice that, opposed to Maui, which you also had in there still, right? Opposed to Maui, you can just get rid of it in that one turn. So
yeah, absolutely. It takes a lot of the pressure off, meaning that they just can't get that free 2 or sometimes 4 extra lore. One thing it also does is that it is really good at blocking your opponent's Flynn Rider when they have like their own Maui out, because so often they have their Maui out and it's just bigger than every other character on the board, and then you have this Hercules that means that their Flynn doesn't trigger. So it was a really good card in most matchups. I don't know, like, I still don't think you can just play 4 of them, just because Maui being inkable is just so good, and so often it still trades with 2 of their characters, whereas Hercules will often only trade with 1 of their characters. But yeah, it impressed me for sure.
And I think it's quite cool to see through the course of the set how certain cards that we might have originally passed on, especially like at the very beginning of the set when we did our set review. I mean, I could be wrong, and I probably should have checked before I started saying this, but pretty sure we did not grade that Hercules very high, because we thought that, you still had Maui that was pretty effective. And here it is, almost kind of emerging itself, where we underestimated it, I think. I can't remember, but
I think we probably gave it like a C, which is kind of where the card is. It is really good at doing this one specific thing in your really bad matchup, which is killing the Queen's Castle in the Amethyst matchups, and not necessarily great in other spots, but it is really important to be able to have this tool so you can just clean that card up. Because what happened a lot of time was, in order to kill the Queen's Castle, you'd have to attack it with Flaversham and Maui, and then that denies you some draw a lot of time, either singing How Far I'll Go or just questing with the Flaversham, or it opens your Flaversham up to get Maui'd itself, or Mim with the crab. So it protected Flaversham a lot, which was actually really good. If I played this deck in Chicago, I think I would have been a lot happier. I did not like my Chicago deck very much, because I didn't like Ice Block as a card a whole lot.
But that's kind of what everybody was kind of on at the time.
It was. Yeah, I just did not feel great about my Chicago deck. Like, I love my deck for Atlanta, just did not feel great about my Chicago deck.
Yeah.
But if I played this one, I think I would have had a lot more success.
And, okay, so putting this into perspective, too, you said that you had loved your deck for Atlanta, but in all fairness, that was towards the end of the set, in which we kind of honed in what the best cards for those colors would be, whereas we had to turn around and use the new cards for Chicago that, in all reality, we didn't even get to practice that much with, because we still were a little bit behind having to play with the previous set for Atlanta. So we didn't really want to practice with cards we weren't going to be able to play, with anyway there. But basically, that was at the beginning of the set, and here this is at the end. And so, it kind of makes sense that you had liked your deck better for Atlanta, because at that point you had so much practice with those cards.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a quick turnaround that I thought it would be similar enough, but it just was not a good version of the deck in Chicago. I also played 2 of the 8-cost Sisus, and that card was incredible all day. Over the course of both days. It was a one-sided board wipe so often, and it just comes with a really impactful body, just being, I mean, it's relatively big, but it also quests for 3. So that card was awesome. I had a 4-2 split of Be Prepared and Sisu's, and that felt really good. So yeah, I love my deck. Dana?
I don't want to talk about it.
I know you don't want to talk about it.
So I kept the same deck as I did the previous week because I thought, hey, top forward twice. Just keep it going. You know, don't switch things up too much because you're comfortable with it. I should have switched things up. We played each other first round on Saturday, and that Pegasus did prove to come pretty useful for my deck because I, being an aggro, like, obviously I'm trying to outrace you, but traditionally, the Ruby Sapphire decks, my game plan is, you know, get all of those characters out quick, and heck, even if I can shift that Pegasus, and then maybe make, like, my 2-drop Flynn that quests for 2, or something like that, evasive into my next turn, like, that, hey, that would be pretty good. But your Pegasus just completely negates the effectiveness of that, and so it did turn out to be pretty annoying against my deck, especially because I didn't have any evasives that had more than 3 willpower, so it pretty much killed everything that I could put out. But yeah, I did not do very well. I lost the first 3 rounds back to back to back. I did win my 4th, but at that point you were I think by the 3rd round, you were locked into top 8 anyway. And so I told myself, well, there's at least going to be 4 or 5 more hours of me just here for no reason. And traditionally I would stay and at least play out all of Swiss anyway, just for the practice. But my sister was in town and my family was having like a fun Olympic watch party at my parents' house. And so I had FOMO, and I said, peace out, Dalton. Good luck to you. But my sisters came and picked me up. They were real homies, and I left you. So I just decided to raise the white flag and concede for the day. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I saw more Steel Emerald decks this past weekend that was able to do the Bucky thing, and it was quite annoying. I thought my game plan going into it would be sufficient, but those decks were also playing the Shift Flynn that was evasive, and so my game plan of playing evasive characters for that deck and trying to just outquest them just got nullified because that Flynn just challenged and survived. So that was kind of annoying. And there was, I think, twice where I quested with those and just completely forgot that their Flynn had evasive. I just completely forgot. I think because I was so worried about his whole like questing for 4 based on cards that I forgot that he also has the evasive. So I was just whatever. But yeah, I don't know. That was my Saturday.
Yeah.
4 and out.
Yeah, the one thing that we talked about Sunday specifically was that we probably could have added the 8-cost Sisu to your deck as well.
Yes.
I think that would have probably greatly improved some of the steel matchups just because they, it takes care of Bucky and Diablo pretty easily, and you can do it on turn 6, a turn before they would normally expect a Wrath. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, because I had a couple of people throughout the course of both weekends kind of mention something like, I'm just going to hope you don't have a B prep. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't have any. Mainly because it didn't fit my deck game plan, Mm-hmm. I'm trying to be the aggro and outrace. And so having...
Yeah, be prepared and Curse Merfolk don't really work together that well.
Right. And even more so, I, at that point, didn't have any characters that could even sing it anyway. My highest character was the Medusa. And So it just kind of, I don't know, it just didn't feel like it fit quite well. However, the Sisu, I think, would have done a sufficient amount anyway, because especially against the Emerald Steel decks, like, they pretty much can get rid of a lot of that, and then my Maui can take care of the rest. But
or Medusa,
or the Medusa, right? And so it could pretty much it can pretty much control that part as well. And even like I played against a Steel Song, I think on Sunday, where they got way too wide for me. And honestly, if I would have had that Sisu, it could have probably been quite handy.
Yeah, I think Sisu is relevant in pretty much every matchup against a lot of the blue decks. It'll take care of, well, obviously it's Flaversham, but in this blue steel decks it hits Cogsworth as well, which can be really important. It hits so many characters that aren't the shift cards in
Even
Steel
on
Song.
Right. And even on top of that, it's kind of like a double duty where, yeah, it hits all of those characters, but also it quests for a lot too. So it still follows the game plan that my deck is trying to do, which is just quest for a lot really quick. So if I could have, gotten it out early enough to and shifted it, then even better. But yeah, we didn't think about it until after Sunday. So, well, midway through Sunday, so obviously too late. We didn't think about it until it was too late. So
Yeah. And it would have been good against all the different broom. I mean, it was really great against me for me against the broom decks. So I don't know if you played any broom decks in the course of the day. I played against 4 over the weekend. So
I played a deck that did do brooms a little bit with they actually did like Blurple. So I played a Blurple deck, but sorry, it's so weird to say that. But I guess we can just move into my Sunday because it's less eventful than Dalton's. I went 2-2 on Sunday. So we actually only did 4 rounds of Swiss because we had just under the number that we needed for 5. And honestly, I don't know about you, but it was kind of nice because it was Sunday, the last day of the set champs, and I think I was just ready to move on with my life after that and, just get ready for the next set. So, yeah, 2-2, and I feel like we already stated all of my thoughts that I had even after Sunday, so I'm just going to pass it along to you because your news is way more exciting than mine.
yeah, I won again, I guess.
2 Ursulas and 2 Matts.
Yeah, I did have a pretty scary moment in the finals. I went first because I was the higher seed, and my opponent just kind of crushed me in the first game. He was playing Mufasa, and they just had a really, really strong draw, and just he's a pretty good player, especially with Mufasa, and he just crushed me that game. And then the second game, it was a reverse. I kind of crushed him. No, that's not what happened. The second game was actually kind of back and forth, but I was able to pull it out. And then the third game, he just had a bunch of Plutos and Gastons, but had no good cards to play with them for, I guess. So had, this is the typical problem in Magic when you have all the mana but none of the payoffs. And this was the analog to that.
I think he like either drew and inked or just drew and kept for like 3 or 4 turns in a row.
Yeah, he kept playing like a Pluto on, and then eventually I played a Be Prepared, and he had like 3 ink in play, and then he just inked pass, play something that wasn't very good, and I'm like, man, what? But he still had like some cards in his hand, so yeah. I really couldn't figure out what his hand was at one point because he had all these characters that create extra ink, but he didn't play anything with it. He just quested, and then
I almost wonder if it was either like uninkables or things that you needed characters for, like, because I think he was running like Teeth and Ambitions, and obviously we're doing a lot of speculation, so like maybe because he needed a character in order to do the teeth inhibitions or whatever, like stuff like that. Maybe he just had all of that in his hand plus uninkables.
Yeah, I think the one card he probably did have was the 8-cost Sisu. He probably just didn't have enough ink to cast it, even though he had a bunch of ink characters in play. He might just not have had enough ink to cast it, or he just figured that questing was better because I didn't have anything that would get banished by it.
Right.
So that was kind of a weird third game. So I ended up winning that one. Yeah, it was a really good weekend, much better than the previous one for me.
For sure. Although I will say you won a box with that too, and we thought, is this the box we get an enchanted in?
We already have an enchanted from this set.
It was not. Yeah, it's like one of the lame ones.
It's also messed up.
It is also messed up, and I contacted about it, and they sent us a pack.
A pack.
That didn't even have anything good in it. It's fine. But anyway, moving on. Moving on. But yeah, I'm proud of you. Definitely a better weekend. Here's the thing that I feel like I constantly tell you is that you pilot that deck so well that I feel like when I watch other people play that kind of deck, I do see them try to do like figuring out like the card draw and the order of things. Yes. But for some reason, I feel like when I watch you, you constantly do so much on your turn because you do things in the proper order to get the most out of your turn. Like you really truly do a crap ton on your turn. And I think that just is a, what word am I trying to say? A testament to all the years that you had playing other TCGs too. And I don't know, you do it really well. So
yeah, some skills do carry over, but sometimes you also get a little lucky.
I mean, I feel like you can't say luck. I mean, okay, let's forget last weekend, right? But like you do well in tournaments generally, and so you can't keep going off of luck. You gotta give some sort of credit, but nonetheless, we have Gen Con coming up this weekend. So by the time that you are listening to this, if you are at Gen Con or planning on going to Gen Con, come find us. And we're going to be playing in a couple of events. We unfortunately did not get into Constructed, but we are doing 3 and I think 2 drafts and 1 like starter deck chaos. So whatever that is, we don't know, but starter deck chaos sounds pretty fun, whatever it might be. So we signed up for it.
I'm really excited to play Limited. We haven't played Limited in this game, and that's pretty much my favorite way to play Magic. So I'm really excited to test it out on this one. I've heard a lot of people kind of say it's kind of easy to play or draft in this game just because you literally just take the best card in every pack, and I mean that might not sound super interesting. I mean, because that's kind of subjective. The best card is going to be different from person to person based on how they think of the cards, but like since there's no ink restrictions, it's just play the most versatile card or take the most versatile or best card. And I'm kind of excited for that because it sounds fun, but also doesn't sound super challenging because there's no... You can just do whatever you want. You know, in Magic, you have to stick to like 2 colors. But in Lorcana, you don't have to, so it's just take whatever you want.
I feel like there is going to be some challenge to an extent where, yes, you're taking the best cards, but figuring out how they can curve out into each other and interact with each other and make it work. Because, I mean, there are a lot of cards in Lorcana where we might think that it's a really good card of that color, but when you pair it with another color, they just don't mesh, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's also different because cards in Limited generally have different values to them as cards are constructed. Something like, hey, persistent presence. I mean, I don't know. I haven't played Lorcana Limited, like
Speculation.
I said. Yeah, it could actually just be a really good card in Limited because you play it on turn 2, it trades, and Limited is often just about gaining more resources over your opponents. So that's a good card because it's going to trade a lot and then it can become ink. Whereas it's not a very good card in constructed just because it isn't impactful enough in general.
Right, for sure.
So values on cards like that do change, and I'm kind of excited to explore that.
Yeah, me too. Speaking of Hey Persistent Presence, he actually is in the starter deck that we are planning on covering today. So, do you want to jump into that?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Okay, so if you listened to our episode last week, you kind of got an idea for how we feel about this deck. I think when you pair the two up together from this set, the other one is stronger. There are a couple of cards in here that I feel like have seen play, and we're going to talk about that as well, but essentially this is trying to function as a Madrigal deck, and we do have other characters in there as well, but I'm just going to go out on a limb of my very limited experience with TCGs.
Okay.
I think the reason why this deck isn't as powerful as the other one is you were combining two colors that traditionally are not... All right. I do know that this is going to be... I don't know how to actually verbalize what I'm trying to say, but I guess I'm considering these to be quote-unquote supporting colors. So I feel like you see purple paired with the two powerful controlling type of colors. You see purple paired with amethyst paired with steel and amethyst paired with ruby. Those are both controlling. They have damage inflicting power. And similarly to amber, I mean, you see that paired with steel and even heck ruby too. But you're almost combining the two supporting colors of those decks together, and there's not really a lot of answers that they have on their own. Does that make sense? I think. So am I right, or am I on?
So I think in constructed, amethyst is just a strong color, just because you have the zoo package. I think amethyst primarily makes up the majority of the amethyst emerald deck, or the amethyst...
Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like people who are newer, I feel like they've only been hearing the term zoo when people refer to the Zoolander Blue Steel deck. So will you take that? Will you explain what you mean by zoo in this particular instance?
Basically, the Madam M and Merlin cards that are in amethyst, the bounce cards.
Because they're animals?
Because they're animals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's just that simple, huh?
It's just that simple.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
When you were referring to some people, were you referring to yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
But you know what? They're... Okay, all right.
I was just asking. I don't care.
Well, okay, so isn't there... But I'm only saying that because correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't play Magic, but isn't there also a term in Magic where someone could be playing a zoo deck in Magic? Okay, and that's completely different, right?
No.
They're playing beasts. They're playing emeralds.
Or
not emerald. Wait, what is that? Forest. What is that? Wait, is that?
They're playing green. Zoo is because there was an aggressive deck that played a lot of apes and cats, and so they just named it zoo because you were aggressive with animals.
Okay.
And there was a Hearthstone deck called Zoolock, and it's just a term. It's just a term in card games. Regardless, enough of that tangent. I think amethyst is actually more than a supporting color in constructed. The issue here is that they obviously don't have the good amethyst cards in this deck. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think Dolores and Isabella are reasonable cards, honestly.
I will say that Isabella got played against me in Chicago in a Ruby Amethyst deck. And that was quite annoying because it dealt with my Diablo, but I couldn't really trade with it unless I did a Diablo, and then I also wasted maybe a Let the Storm Rage on it or something. but that one I feel like of this deck is good. When we had played, I also felt like TikTok was good. The crocodile.
It was just huge, yeah.
A huge evasive body. 7 willpower.
Get off the board.
Yes. So, other than that, though, I really felt like, I don't know. I felt like you did more things with the other deck.
This deck doesn't have really any removal spells or any good ones. It's relying just on big characters. And I think the other deck only really has Smash as like a removal spell, but One Last Hope and the Imperial Bow also really help out with that. Whereas this deck doesn't. It has like Poor Unfortunate Souls, which is just...
It's like a bounce.
It's a bounce spell, and it's not that great. I just don't think this deck really has like a game plan. Like, you want to be like this board control deck, but you also have some of these singers, and even though you're a board control deck, you aren't stalling the game out and able to really win the game because you don't have enough late game characters that are meaningfully impactful to the board. You have Isabella and you have TikTok, which TikTok only quests for 1, but he's huge. Isabella quests for a lot. But those are really the only ways you have to answer the board. This does have a little bit of card advantage, which I like it. The Dolores is good. The Juliettas are good.
Well, the Juliettas are good and constructed, but that's because you also have the Ruby cards that come in with damage.
I mean, that's true.
And so I feel like it doesn't really do that. It's not as impactful in this deck as it is normally seen when it gets played and constructed, but that's because it's with another color. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. The deck just didn't really feel very good to play, honestly. I mean, it's hard to explain. It just didn't feel like...
You were doing anything.
You were doing much of anything productive to me. We probably were just playing it wrong. Like, there are some curves that could be good. Hey into like Rolly could be good just because Rolly lets Hey trade into a lot of stuff and come back.
I think the issue is you either have decks that are controlling and you have decks that are aggro, and so you either have high questing characters or you have characters that can, control the board, do damage, but like this deck really didn't have either.
Yeah, so I mean, every star deck like this is going to be some sort of like mid-range deck just because they're not going to have an aggressive enough curve to be an aggro deck, and they're not going to have enough removal to be a control deck, so they're always going to fall somewhere in the middle. I just think that cards like Hercules and the Imperial Bow, and heck, even Mickey Mouse is really good. Philoctetes is really good because you often get into these giant board stalls and you can just start playing out characters, and that nets you lore passively. So it just seemed like that was the better strategy. Especially when your opponent is playing Juliettas and Doloreses, you don't want to be just questing willy-nilly because they have multiple ways to take advantage of that with their card draw. So, yeah, I mean, the one card you really need to look out for, I think, was Isabella, just because she can quest for so much. But like I said earlier, the Imperial Bow really helps out with that.
Yeah. Could you even stick with this kind of deck like we tried to do last week with that starter deck? Can you even take this and make it better, or is it pretty much like it just won't work like this?
I don't think there's enough good like madrigals to make a madrigal theme deck and have it be good, I guess. That being said, I mean, you could definitely make this deck better by adding the Grandma and more Doloreses and Juliettas and probably more of both Brunos, I think, and Isabellas. Like, you could definitely make a more magical themed deck and it would probably be better than this pile of cards. So, yeah, I'm going to try.
All right.
If that's what you're asking.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just gotta add some friends on the other side and we'll start coming together.
It always does.
It always does.
It always does. Yeah, definitely take out that healing glow.
Yeah, I don't know why they still include this card.
They want it to work so bad.
It never does.
I want to work so bad. Yeah, same thing with like heels. What has been hurt? Like that one just is beautiful art, just not a good card.
Not a good card, no.
Not a good card. I'd be really interested to see, you know, what it might look like for sure.
Just put some friends on the other side and some queen's castles, and you know what, the deck will probably function fine.
Yeah, yep. 2 best cards in that color, in my opinion, are most universal for that.
Probably some of the zoo package as well.
And now I know what that means. I feel like an idiot. Oh well.
You're not an idiot.
Well, yeah.
All right. So actually, there's one other thing I want to talk about.
All right. This is not on the agenda.
This is not on the... Well, it was on my agenda. I just didn't tell you about it.
Great.
I actually just wanted to shout out some of the content creators that are leaving the space for a little while.
Yeah.
Whether that's the 40 Born podcast, those 2 guys, Live Laugh Lorcana,
Glimmer
Gang, Jaunty. These have all been really impactful members of the community, and I understand why you're leaving. I totally get it. It kind of makes us a little sad.
It does make us sad, yeah.
Because just some of the OGs that have been there even before we were, and we've been doing this for about a year. So yeah. It sucks to see it go, but I hope that we get to a point where you can come back and thrive.
Yeah. No, that actually is really sweet that you talk about that. Yeah, because that's been on my mind all week too. I mean, we know firsthand it's hard being a content creator. I think Becky and Katie said this in their podcast episode. Like, we all do this because it's fun to us and it's a hobby. It is not like our full-time jobs, but sometimes it does feel like a full-time job because of how much time you have to put into it. And so we definitely understand, and our hearts are out to you. And like Dalton said, we hope you at some point find a way back in at some capacity to content create. We hope it's not, forever a goodbye, but thank you for being in the content creation space, for providing whatever you had done. I think a lot of people have come to this game and would not have been like as in it without having content creators engaging them in some way, whether it's a podcast or just maybe like social media posts or videos or streaming or, whatever it was. There was impact that was made to somebody that brought them into the game and got them into Lorcana. And heck, even when we tried, first coming into the community, there were people that had given us like content creation shout outs on their own channels. And that was something that they definitely didn't have to do. But I think it's a testament to how the community really is a community. And we don't see other content creators as like rivals, but more a community that we're all doing this together. We all love the game. We all want people to start playing the game and to keep playing the game, and it's just the community that had been created. So yeah,
it's a pretty great one.
Yeah, for sure. Well, with that being said, we hope you guys have a great weekend,
and we hope to see you at Gen Con.
Yeah, if you're going to be at Gen Con, let us know, and I may or may not cosplay. So look out for me in a certain attire of a curious girl with a Cheshire cat on her backpack.
Nice.
Thank you. Have a good weekend, guys.
Have a great weekend.